here to diagnose what happened to Georgia's offense in the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame. Brent Rollins, Dayne Young, filmed it live from UGAsports.com. Thanks to ASW Distillery, Oconee Gold Barbecue Sauce, and Breda Pest Management for supporting what we do. And Brent, you and I did a lot of previews, and Notre Dame fans came and supported it, and they may find themselves watching this video as well. We're going to show more than 20 plays for offense and then another for defense. What stood out to you about Georgia's offense here?
Well, first, a couple of things offensively. I think they didn't take advantage of Notre Dame's aggressiveness early. They should have taken, there was more of a let's get sort of into the game first, I think, before they said, hey, we're going to go take some shots, but because there were some things Notre Dame did. Two, I don't think they had enough I think there was more trust in their guys to win on some of these one-on-ones instead of creating the space for them with various concepts. And then lastly, at the end, it was some players, not plays, or plays, not players at the end of the game. And that was when you're trying to make a comeback, you got to, to me, think more so players than plays. But if you think about the preview that we did, if I had told you that Gunner would throw for 234, a touchdown, and 0 interceptions, Notre Dame would only have one play in the red zone, and that Price and Love would combine for 56 yards with 0 10-plus yard runs, what would you have said Georgia won by? Because to me, I'm sitting there thinking that's a 10-plus win for Georgia, plus point win, given those factors. Mm-hmm. But Notre Dame completely controlled the line of scrimmage, especially in what we're about to show with Georgia's offense.
Line of scrimmage and special teams, and just did not make mistakes. It's such the Georgia formula for how Georgia has dominated teams for years under Kirby Smart. And Notre Dame did it better.
Yep.
It wasn't some big explosive offense, but you had a gamer at quarterback. It kind of reminded you of some of those early Stetson Bennett games where a good aggressive defense, more undersized than Georgia. But they got yards when they needed to, and then you get the special teams touchdown. And then Georgia didn't have the firepower to come back.
No, not at all.
Let's look into it here. I'm pulling up my notes. We start first play of the game. This is kind of indicative to me, Brent, just the blocking to the right here between Delp and Truss. What caught your eye?
And a lot of it's indecision, but to me, it's also this is the part where we're aggressive. So you had the two receivers there, but kind of a bunch. Smith motions away, and then you're running a toss sweep where you're getting some pin and pull action. And from the get-go, they were aggressive and not thinking that they can play downhill. Because if you watch – so the first block is Lucky's. Lucky has to get the edge. Boom. And then he's 8, by the way. 8, Schuler, I think. That dude, unreal. Great in this game for Notre Dame. You missed that, so now you got there. And then for Delp and Truss, a lot of it is, all right, I'm going to get the next guy, sort of the who shows first, and then the other gets the other. And Delp goes and gets the second guy. Truss is like, oh, okay, now you're not necessarily going to – I need to think that. Well, then it's just all there. And you don't get any sort of leverage at all, and now you're losing 2. But the biggest thing is watch their 3 linebackers. So it's 24, 34. Watch all those guys at the snap, just in cohesion, all together, just downhill. We're playing fast, downhill, aggressive. That's why I thought you'd see a lot in the early part of the game, more play action, more misdirection early. They tried it once with the reverse, but that got stuffed on the second drive.
I'm going to do I'm going to do something that's not great here, Brent. I'm going to put you on the spot. And for about 30 seconds, if you have the box score in front of you, just say the things that you found to be most interesting. Because there's a button that I need to push to make the video run a little bit faster on my end. But it's going to cause me to leave.
Okay. All right. So box score
for me to do that, it's going to put a little pressure on you to host the deal. So
I can do that. All right. Cool. So box score things. Etienne and Frazier, 15 carries, 75 yards. By the way, we're only seeing – there we go. You only saw you on the screen for a second.
Yeah, well, I was making sure. It's probably going to bring you full screen. Stand by.
Okay. That was one of the things – Georgia's lack of running game. I thought Georgia would be able to go at Notre Dame consistently in the running game. I thought they'd be able to win on Notre Dame's edges. And what you look at least from when you rewatch it, is Notre Dame's movement and aggressiveness consistently caused Georgia problems. It put their offensive line on their heels for the most part of the game. Other box score things, at least from this, is the fact that Riley Leonard had 14 carries for 80 yards. That had to happen, I think, for Notre Dame from the rushing game standpoint. The other thing that was big to me is who Georgia chose to make. A lot of the times, their offense is not necessarily play call driven. Sometimes it is, but it's quarterback driven. Hey, what are you seeing? And here are your options. Go pick the best one, kind of thing. Dylan Bell was targeted 11 times in this game. That was Dominic Lovett 4, Arian once, the deep ball that he caught. Like, that's always things where it's like, okay, curious why we didn't think, all right, who's my biggest separators? I would have said Dom Lovett and Arian. So we'll see.
Well, here's one of those to Bell.
And like, so RPO, great decision from Gunner. And when you look at Gunner and how he played in this game, very good outside the numbers, good, accuracy. He put a lot of velocity on his throws. And this is one where I do think his release can be sped up. And we're going to look at it here in a little bit. But this was a RPO decision and a great job by Truss seeing the blitz, and then a great back shoulder placement from Notre Dame's against Notre Dame's corner with Bell, and Bell makes the play, and just the barest of bare little bit that he stepped on the sideline. Which, by the way, look where you're circling that there. I put this on Twitter earlier in the weekend. That's right by the 39. That's almost to the 39-yard line. The ball was, they reviewed this play to see if he caught it and stayed in bounds. The ball was spotted for the next play inside the 38-yard line. I'm like, how do you mess that up? You reviewed the play. But anyway,
you're going to get people into the refs in our comments.
Yeah, and when you and the officiating is, we always talk about it, it always usually equals out. But another thing here is, this is a great spot of where you can show Gunner's why his release is just a little slower, I think, than it could be. And we're going to see if Huddle cooperates with us. But pause it after he separates on the throw. So right there. So in that spot right there, he is in a money position. But what he does, and if I can try to get my arm on the screen here, what he does when he throws is, instead of going here in that sort of C motion and the rotation that you consistently see all the QB coaches talk about, and the sort of Dak Prescott hip drill, hip, all that thing, he goes to here. He goes to 90 and then starts rotating. That's the timing function. I put a note on the vent earlier in the weekend. I think this can be fixed, like with work and focused effort, and sped up greatly and whatnot. But still, accurate throw. That's how he throws. Okay, fine. And go be accurate. And he was, for the most part, in this game.
Another catchable ball. That's one. The ball, it seems like it's easier. Well, I'm saying this. It seems like it's easier to catch from him than maybe some of the lasers we've seen from Carson Beck.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, though. Like, we did have the Dylan Bell miss late. We're going to
that's what I paused. I was like, well, yeah, there's still drops.
We do have that one,
but different kinds, and we'll talk about those too. My eyes go to Oscar Delp, and Notre Dame was bullying people in this game,
and being aggressive, like just downhill being aggressive. All right, so let's go back to the right before this, and the reason we showed this play is because this sets up the fumble play later that ETN, because it's basically the similar thing. So you have two tight ends, 12 personnel, Delp and Jurasic, and you're running your sort of duo scheme, man-on-man, like straight ahead running game. You see the double team there. You see double team Wilson, Ratledge, and then working up. And you see the edge part. And by the way, Delp does a great job of initially hitting, but eight just look what 8 does right there. And by the way, he's 200 pounds.
Yeah, it's a big dude.
6 foot, 200-pound safety. But that's one of the guys where if I'm an NFL guy, I'm like, okay, writing that guy's name down, because he just played more physical than basically anyone on the field the entirety of the game. You get like a yard. But by the way, the other part is, let's as we preface it to the later play, Arian comes across in motion. Look where Arian's lined up. Right there near the hip of the tight end, very close to the tight end, and he goes down and takes care of business, actually. because he's got 3. And look what he does to 3. He ends up on the ground.
You know, actually,
Yeah, you only get 1 yard, but you're like, okay, I just missed 1 block, and later I can use this again in short yardage, that sort of thing. So it sets up later from how we're going to see what it's the sort of not best way to do things.
And the note of, from a personnel standpoint, Arian Smith is right there with your best run blocking receivers right now.
I mean, at this point in the season, yeah.
And I don't think, and we'll show some of this, personnel wise, Georgia didn't use him that way enough for my taste.
Yes. KYP. Know your personnel.
Now, this, if you question can Gunner Stockton make some throws, this is a dime.
This was a great job by him. 3-by-1, I think, to the other side, 3 receivers to the other side. Does a good job of, you know, what did we say Notre Dame was going to do consistently coming into the game? They're going to play a lot of man. Well, guess what they did? They played a lot of man coverage and said, hey, go beat us. And he looks left, takes away the backer that's drifting back 34, looks left. Okay, I don't like what I see there. No instant wins, coming back, boom. Ripped it. And I think just his throwing motion in general is gonna rip it through consistently, which, by the way, you just pause it there with 56 arms up in the air.
It goes between his hand and his shoulder.
And also, I think he maybe pulled his hand down and then the ball went by him potentially too. Because I think because of the release thing that I was talking about, he jumped, I think, anticipating the ball when it was going to come out versus when it actually did come out. So he missed it a little bit.
So the little windup helped.
Hey, right there it did. Very much so. But still, like that's you see that and you're like, okay, all right, we're going to throw in the middle of the field and throw lasers into there. There you go.
You feeling good if you're a Georgia fan right now? Like, you're making some progress?
Still, no inconsistencies. Now, this is one, again, where, all right, so you go, Lucky moves, so you're in 3-by-1, 3 to the field, 1 receiver to the short side of the field. You motion across. This isn't like a jailbreak screen because you don't see Truss leaving 44 and going down. But this is the one part for me where I get you want to stay in manageable third downs, or you think your matchups are good enough. But this is one where early in the game I would have loved to have seen them fake some of this stuff and go like Lucky fake that block and go down the field, because look what 8 is doing. The ball's not even out of his, like he's turning to throw and 8 is racing and screaming to get the bell because that's how he plays. And I think you're going to see Penn State probably try to do a lot of double moves or fake one way, throw it deep, throw it over the head, that kind of thing because of that.
Cyborg of a tight end just streaking down the sideline.
Yeah, but it's just like you let them play aggressive versus, hey, shot play, or fake this and then go. Because, I mean, that guy just made plays. He's a heck of a football player.
So, yeah, from a personnel standpoint, the safeties on Notre Dame, that's the best defenders they have right now.
Yes.
So don't put them in a position to be in the one-on-ones. Like, try to attack other people. And this is not a winning matchup, I don't think.
And you didn't win that one consistently, at least not against 8. There was one Delp. We're going to show Delp later where he did, but for the most part, you didn't win those matchups.
You had said before the game you thought Dom Lovett would be a really big factor. Had some plays.
This is a play where get out of the way like that. I hate that they're in the way because it would have been nice for him to just catch it and get vertical right there, or get sort of north-south a little more so. But looking at what they did here is, and you can see it a little bit. So Lovett was actually started on the left side of the field, motioned across. So now you got 2-by-2. And in their sort of man look, because look, you can see single safety, man-to-man coverage. It came to kind of a stacked release where I think it was Humphreys. Is London Humphreys the one there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's kind of going at that guy and allows Lovett to come underneath and makes the corner sort of make a decision. And it created massive amounts of separation for them. you saw it a little later when Gunner faked and then rolled out to the right. That was one where I was like, okay, that's what you got to do to create separation and space against Notre Dame. You just didn't see it a lot.
This is a 5-man rush from Notre Dame, and Georgia blocks it very well.
Yeah, and I think they could have done this most of the game, if not all the time.
We wanted to see, could Gunner Stockton be a threat in the running game, something different for Georgia? Play calling wise, I don't think they leaned on that very much, but
and it's a good thing they didn't, because guess what Notre Dame did? Notre Dame said, guess what? We're going to practice for that, and we're going to play it how most teams play this. And this is one where this is how defenses now counter the zone read game. Is they tell that edge defender, so that's, and by the way, I think 30 got called for offsides in this play, so it ended up not being a thing, but not being a they got 5 yards after this. But they say, hey, you go chase the back, and then I have a scrape linebacker sitting there for the quarterback. And this actually works to the point where he could at least get north-south, but 97 for Notre Dame, the defensive tackle, which, by the way, is the guy that took Riley Mills' place and played in
start.
Yeah, he did it, made a lot of plays where they kind of had him as the, not necessarily 2-gap defender, but because he's 6'5", 310, I think. I'm going to stack and shed versus you saw the other movement, all the other with their defensive line, movements, stunts, angles, all sorts of consistency with that. So maybe you're able to get north-south a little bit here if he doesn't come across and make the play, but he does. But still, Notre Dame was very much ready for any sort of fake and run game that Georgia might have. And this is why I almost would have, going into the game, had Gunner read a second-level defender and be like, okay, barring this guy being on your lap on the mesh point, like don't just give the ball. Don't keep it.
You teed this up perfectly, because we go right back, and then this is Tate Ratledge, 3-year SEC starter.
And I think this was if you look at the sort of flow of the game, because now we're sort of into the first quarter, and Notre Dame's done their sort of consistent movement thing. And because of that, you see Georgia's offensive line was not moving forward as well, because a lot of times, like when you saw Texas, we'll use Texas as an example, they had some success in the run game in the second half against Texas. They know where Texas is going to be. Their guys stay or pretty much play in gaps where they're going to be versus the constant movement. So you can step more aggressively, knowing that the defensive lineman is going to be there, because Texas is like, hey, our guys are good and big and strong and fast. They're just going to beat you. Whereas Notre Dame's like, hey, we're not as big as you, so we're going to move and constantly move. So watch Tate Ratledge's first step here. All that to say, watch his first step. You think he's literally not going anywhere with that first step, that first left foot. He's not really aggressively stepping to where his head gets into 97's right shoulder, and because he's like, okay, is he going to be there? Is he not going to be there kind of thing? Well, then 97 comes right into his chest, and then you get. But it's a function of what Notre Dame did to Georgia's offensive line over time, just the games that they played and the constant movement. And I see this at the high school level consistently, because certain teams at the high school level, they don't have 240-pound defensive tackles or 270-pound defensive tackles that can move and do things. So they have these 215-pound kids that aren't fast enough to play linebacker, and they have to play down line, but they move them, and they constantly move them. They play good run defense because of the movement and the craziness that it creates. For Georgia fans, think back to like Mississippi State days with the 3-3-5 and the way Mississippi State would move and stunt their line consistently. Hey, that's where you got a lot in this game. They just did it with more aggressive, and plus they have safeties that tackle like I don't know what.
Even after this, though, if it's the footwork down here in the trenches, I'm surprised they don't fall over each other like all the time. If Wilson is able to do a second level block here on schedule, look at the hole you'd
Oh,
have.
this was one of the plays where it's like you're that close. You're that close to having some success, but you just don't. But the other thing is, I think Georgia, if you notice here, is you got two tight ends. I think Georgia needed to run more out of one tight end looks, and they did a little bit later. And I think they got better at that as the game went on. But this could have been a big play. It just wasn't. Or at least a successful play as opposed to next to nothing.
Just to reiterate my point about Arian Smith and his effort in run blocking.
Dude gives constant effort.
He's trying, man.
He's going to get people give him a hard time obviously about the drops, and it's the thing. But his speed, his ability to play special teams, and his effort in the run game, he's going to get drafted. Like somebody's going to be like, okay, we'll fix the drop issue, or we'll work with him enough and do some things, or go Rick Vaughn and give him some new goggles or glasses or something like that. So, like, that's going to happen. He's going to get drafted.
We did the watch along show with Coach Donnan, and on this play, I remember him saying that he liked getting Stockton on the run to throw.
And I love this. And the other thing, by the way, it's the same similar route concept that we saw. I don't know if you can see it quite on this angle, but see how the inside receiver is pushing vertically. So the guy that came across with Dom in motion had to go behind that guy. So now you've created all this separation. And that sort of movement, again, more of that. Needed to see more of that in the game.
This is almost like a version of Carson Beck had such a quick release. Well, when you have Gunner who can throw on the run and extend plays in that way, you almost get some of that version of what was going to work best for him in lieu of the quick release.
Yep.
All right, so I think we all saw this is the fumble from Trevor Etienne. I'm going to pause this at the snap, and I've said all this about Arian Smith blocking. I want him on the field instead of here. I mean, Evans is in the transfer portal now, so this is not something that Georgia fans will see again. But
barring changes, because people have made that, but yeah, I don't foresee him changing his mind in terms of Portland. But the biggest thing is alignment and assignment, knowing what you have to do. Because this is, I will say, the other thing too, as a play caller, this would have been a great place to fake this and throw a tight end leak or something like that. But anyway, he's just not ready. Like, he's just flat not ready, because if you get that one block right there, now 8's probably whipping him, even if he is trying to block him, but at least you can get you have the crease. Delpa's done his job. Your Rossick's caving it in. Like, that's a hole if you get in the way in some form.
Although this
and you
should
get your
probably
2
be a
yards
holding penalty there, but
right, and you get your 2 yards, you get your first down, and maybe you score. But the other thing is, soon as he gets the ball, boom, done. Now, the other part of this play, where it's when we compared it to the one we showed earlier, look where Gunnar Stockton is. Under center. Mm-hmm. Under center, center's covered up so they can't sneak. They're coming right in just in case you do try to sneak, versus being in the shotgun. Like, if he's now, granted, if you're in the shotgun, you see defenses adjust to where you put the back. But I think in plays like that, when you have a hyper aggressive defense, I would have loved to have seen him in the shotgun there, just as a threat potentially to pull the ball.
Now we get a sideline angle shot here to Arian.
I don't think he ever really truly caught the ball. He just kind of planted it on his chest, but beautiful deep ball. There are so many things about this play that, first and foremost, when the flag came out, I thought it was for roughing the passer, because he gets destroyed right in the head. And they showed the replay, and when we were doing the watch along, and I was like, oh, that's roughing the passer. And then they're like, no, it's a sideline thing. But by the way, look why he gets destroyed. Delp's not ready for contact. 34, absolutely. And this is the theme of the game, by the way. 34 just says, all right, I'm coming at you and going through you, and you're not stopping me.
On his heels,
that was one. Yeah. By the great, perfect placement on the deep ball. Like that, air under it, exactly where you wanted to be. Another thing that's true, 39. I'm sorry. Infamous guy now. I'm not even going to say his name. I'm just going to use the number. Shouldn't have been where he was. Period. End of story. Now, here's the even what's interesting about it is when you rewatch the All-22, he didn't move. He was standing in the exact spot that he was the entirety of the play. The only thing he did was go like this to be cheerful, but his feet literally didn't move the entire time. So he was in the white the entirety of the time. Other part that's true. I think this, because it hurt, is why this guy threw the flag and called it a 15-yarder, because you see him grabbing his ribs. Like, if that was just a little trip up and not a big deal, but that hurt.
No.
And I think that kind of influenced the call in the way it was made. And by the way, it's a penalty. It is a penalty.
That was Dad getting mad at roughhousing is what that was.
And I don't think it, like, in a game like that, do you call it as a like for 15-yarder kind of thing? I don't know that I'd go there. But still, it's a penalty. One thing, I saw a comment on Twitter, given the fact that the running into the kicker penalties happened, they thought that should have been a 5-yard running into the referee penalty.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty good.
Next up, Oscar Delp across the middle.
Hey, winning. Where can you find winners when you're getting man-to-man? And Delp just wins right here after a sack, by the way, right? You come back right after a sack. You're thinking, okay, this possession's going nowhere, and wins and gets north-south. And when you play man like they do, if you get catches on the run like this, you can get big plays. And that's where, like, Penn State's watching that and being like, okay, we'll do that to 44 the entirety of the game. We'll do it like 15 times.
One note I wanted to make here. So Monroe Freeling is taking a beating, and I get it, at a lot of public spots here where he did not play well at all. When I watched this back, it wasn't as consistently terrible as I think most people were discussing. It wasn't nearly as good as anything he's done in the last month, but he does his job here. But there's a few critical times where Freeling,
yep,
we're going to show those too.
The speed rush got to him a few times, and that's, it's what it is. And especially when, like, the sack play right before this, he didn't kick step backwards like you would normally think he would in true pass pro. Because I think the one before this, it may have been a play action. I can't remember exactly, but it was, the sack that happened right before this. It wasn't a natural kick step for him. So there's one of those things where it's like, okay, what were the conversations on the sideline or things going, or the offensive line talking amongst themselves about how Notre Dame was playing and how they maybe have to do things differently, because this one he kicks, kind of does it exactly how you want to.
I just wanted to mention it because I think the conversation quickly gets to, this guy sucks, or what, like it goes to the extremes. And
it's always the extremes, right? There's no other way to talk about this sport.
It's a little more nuanced. He had very public poor plays in critical spots, and so that makes it feel worse than it was. But you have to blame somebody when those happen. So I get fans doing that too.
He wasn't. There was two guys that graded lower on PFF in terms of pass block grade than him.
There you go. Arian Smith in motion. Get to talk about him blocking some more as ETN gets the ball to the right.
So this is one where, like I said, this is what Georgia needed to do. This was, in essence, the same play that we saw earlier, except now instead of two tight ends on the field, they have one, and they bring Arian over, and he gets a line and goes, and Notre Dame isn't as aggressive. And this was the ETN's longest run of the game.
You think they're not as aggressive because Arian is just streaking by people typically, and so they're having to respect that a little bit?
There's a little bit of that there, but there's also just a tendency piece to, you're in game, however many, was this game 14? Like, you're in game 14. Like, you as an offense have tendencies in certain formations. Like, I can see those things. We rewatch it as much as we do. We can see those things.
Yeah.
By the way, Delp on 44 right there. That's how it's done. Like, when you look at, in the end, what happened, and this was like, why didn't you see more of this from Georgia? The game kind of dictated itself, but Notre Dame adjusts throughout the game too, and 8 made more plays later in the game because 8's a freaking really good player.
Yeah. This little screen to the left to ETN, third quarter.
Well, just think about, by the way, before we, and the reason we kind of skipped over some spots here with this, go ahead and just pause it, is the rest of the half. The drive, obviously the play, the strip sack, like we don't need to highlight that because it happened what it happened what it did. Like that was pretty clear what was there. It was a short game. They went aggressive when they didn't need to be. Screwed up, bottom line. But the drive before that was and one I'm going to write about on the website. Deep ball to Lucky on a smash fade, on a slot fade, play action shot where they try to get on a delay to Lucky, missed, and then an incompletion on third down. They took all of 27 seconds on that drive. That as much set up the strip sack as anything else. Yep. And we'll look at that. I'm going to look at that and the kickoff or the kick return later in the week on the website.
I mean, but middle 4 of the game, we were talking middle 8, Notre Dame dominated the middle, really middle 2 of the game.
2 minutes stretch where they literally won the game in those 2 minutes.
Yeah. Coaching, special teams, all the things that Georgia typically does well, Notre Dame did better.
Yep. So we get to the second half, and now you're down 20-3 when you get the ball. I mean, hello. I like this play here. ETN just hesitated too much. Mm-hmm. Like this should be a catch and put your foot on the gas pedal and go. Good little screen. Trust does a good job, like flattening the kid basically. That's ideally what you want. And if you look at the all 22 of this, it's more of he should have caught this, boom, and then instantly went inside because of the way I think Watts, that's 0, that's coming down, that's screaming there.
Yeah. Notre Dame's just too fast to hesitate, and I thought ETN was hesitating multiple times in this game, and Notre Dame punished him for it. And that may be the fastest team that Georgia's played this year.
Yes, at least defensively. Yeah, I would agree with that.
There are bigger teams that Georgia's played.
But like Ole Miss was more dominant from a defensive line standpoint with bigger guys like Walter Nolan, and some speed off the edge with Princely. But total, especially in the secondary and the way they played, no, this was the best defense they played.
It's why I think Notre Dame is a legitimate national championship contender, and I'm even including that in a game with Ohio State, which you and I can discuss later.
Yes.
And I'm sure we will. Little shot.
Bell wins, double move, and he throws it away from him. This is one I thought when it happened it was going to be called PI, but it wasn't. But still, I do think this one he put a little too far away from. Like when you look at where Bell breaks this off, I think you can see it right as he leaves the screen. Boom, move. He gets on the numbers. So he's running up the numbers, and then the ball just fades and fades and fades. And yes, you got all that room, but at a certain point, you can't make him go that far away from it. But still, I like the aggressiveness that you had to keep doing this in the game. Just didn't hit it successfully there.
Yeah, and this is one reason I think you're seeing Georgia do. And this is not a shot against Dylan Bell, but you have to have receivers that are going to be winning one-on-one situations, and Georgia didn't have that a whole lot this year. Definitely did not have that in this game. Notre Dame one-on-one was taking care of business.
Yeah, and you got to give him more of a chance here. Like you don't need to once he beats him, give him a chance. Like make the DB recover kind of thing. And this was one that just got a little bit away from him, I think.
3rd and 8.
This is a tough play because I think this should have been a first down, and it's one of the little things in this game that just don't go Georgia's way. All right, so they bring pressure. Gunner does a good job of seeing and feeling the pressure and seeing that. I think it's Truss, or is this Ernest Green at right tackle? Caves in 30. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, all right, I'm going to bust the pocket, and if Cash right here, see how his head's turned? If his head is turned the other way, where he catches it on the outside like he does here in a second, right there, he gets this ball. If he gets that ball right there, instead of 3 steps later, he gets a first down because the DBs hadn't even turned their head yet.
Because of that,
and then at that point, they turn their head and they're rallying to the football, and you're not able to get it.
But
So
that's
little things.
when pressure gets to the pocket that way. It's not always the quarterback. Like sometimes it's the other players having to adjust to it too, being a little bit faster in the processing than you think, and that's the case here. Because
Yep.
I still think Cash Jones is the most reliable receiver on the team.
Yeah. I mean,
But he's a walk-on
that
running
word,
back,
yes.
which is not good for your team as a whole, if that sentence is true. This is the Dylan Bell drop.
I think if you ask Georgia fans, by the way, great job of him moving in the pocket. If you ask Georgia fans what they remember most about this season, I bet that's actually the word that comes to mind. Drop. Like it just was. Now, granted, Georgia scores on this drive. It's not like this was a drive ender. And the other thing and I'll get to the numbers here in a second, but Gunner was really good off play action, like really good, to the point of, okay, why didn't we? It was about 30% of his dropbacks were play action. I thought you'd do more of it. I thought it would help create some of the matchups.
I didn't include this here, but I did put it on the dog vent and on Twitter. So after the drop, Nate Frazier here kind of goes down in disappointment, like I think most of the Georgia players and fans were at the time. He then gets up and sprints downfield to be at the aid of Dylan Bell, who's sulking on the ground from the missed opportunity. Those are little things you like seeing in terms of like what is this team's future when a true freshman running back is sprinting downfield to pick up someone 40 yards away before going back to the huddle. I like little stuff like that.
Yeah, very much so. It's a kid who will be a leader on your football team next year.
Back to Lovett, and I'm going to go back to the snap on this one because watch the hesitation here as he's working in a concept with Nitro Tuggle.
Nice little wheel, kind of hitch wheel, stick wheel, however you want to term it. But good job seeing it. And this is where you had to start getting aggressive. And these rub routes, like, hey, more of this. But much like the Tennessee game, and we talked about this on the watch along, you just need one play to be made sometimes.
Yeah.
And in both instances, in that game and then in this game, it was Dom Lovett that went up and made a contested catch and made a play in the face of really good coverage, because that is really good coverage, and they handled the rub route well. But you finally went and made a play, and I would have thrown to 6 a lot more in this game specifically.
Nate Frazier in the game.
This is a great job by Gunner. Heck of a job from him, just getting rid of the football and seeing what's happening, because they're faking. They're trying to hit. I think Lucky is actually the primary target here, at least initially, coming across as they're trying to get Flo one way and bring him across, but then they kind of bump heads there. But what happens is, so Ratledge is pulling, everybody's going down, and they bring an extra guy. And I think he sees the extra guy first versus the man on the line of scrimmage that ends up coming now in Gunner's face. But it all works out because Gunner makes a heck of a play, and both of those guys are going forward, as opposed to one of them getting blocked and the other getting involved in the play. But heck of a job by him.
Did we talk about how aggressive Notre Dame's defense is?
It's one of those where it's like, okay, this is what they show on tape, and guess what? That's exactly what they did. Exactly what they did is they came after you. It was either man, single high safety, or some cover 3, but for the most part, they played man the entirety of the game. And then this is if you watch the Panthers-Falcons game today, sorry about having to watch that, but Panthers scored a touchdown on this exact play. You got the tight end leak, and then the running back wheel route out of the B back, but great job, play action, by the way. So here's the numbers. Gunner on play action in the game. 8 of 10, 136 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, 91.2 passing grade. I will say I did think he missed. I thought for a second he missed this one because he threw an absolute rope as opposed to throwing the completion to Cash.
Freeling, again, there's some bad plays from him. This is not one of them. Did a great job here.
Yep.
Yeah, Cash plucking that. I was like, okay, that's special.
Did you see Will Campbell talk on Twitter recently about playing offensive line?
Yeah, I forget the context.
Great quote from him. I don't know what the context was, but he said basically hey, if the DN gets 1 sack a game, he's a top 5 pick, top 10 pick. We give up 1 sack a game, we're working at Amazon.
Yeah.
It was a great line from him because, that's one of those ones where you have a couple mistakes as an offensive lineman a game, and everybody sees it. But it takes away the 50 other good plays that you had, or the 28 other pass block reps that you had.
Offensive lineman from LSU is who you're referring to. If
Will Campbell, top 10 pick guy.
Yeah, he's really good. It's one reason I bought into LSU, and then Notre Dame fans that are in here, you can enjoy sulking over and bragging over what Brian Kelly put on tape this year, because halfway through the year I was soaring on that LSU train, and that didn't work out.
I think they're fine with Freeman versus Kelly.
Yeah, I think that worked out for Notre Dame quite well.
They've worked out, enjoyed that very much so.
So Georgia, 10-point game. You're a little over halfway through the third quarter. You have the ball at midfield. So this feels at the moment like Georgia has a shot here.
This is the drive of the game. And you get absolute nothing. I will say I thought you were going to take a shot here, but you go some same side zone. So everybody's zoning left in the back. So you're thinking, right, so why do they do this? So look how Notre Dame's line moves to the left, because that's where the back is, and you think, oh, we're going to get them moving left, and thinking the zone's going, right. They're moving left to the offense's right, and then you kind of come back the other way, and this was one block where 56 just destroyed Jared Wilson.
Yep.
And then now you got nothing, and then look at Watts just scream down from the safety position, and that's the thing that if you look at if you're a Georgia fan, you're like, hey, Notre Dame was missing their best defensive lineman. How did they just dominate this game? It's because they didn't get an L performance from 97 who played in his place, and their safeties. Not just that,
a lot of times he won. It wasn't that he just did not lose. A lot of times he whipped Georgia.
Right, but also because of how 8 and 0 come down and tackle, it mitigates any sort of issues unless you were able to go right at them, and Georgia wasn't able to go right at them.
Because, hypothetically, let's say Watts doesn't come down here, maybe there's still some level of cutback that can happen here. No chance.
And that's ideally what you get. Is you get flow away, you get flow to the offense's right, and you come back left. Because that, by the way, I think it was against maybe Florida. I know it was one other game where they ran this and got 20, 30 yards. Kendall Milton scored a touchdown, 30 yards against Miss State on this. So sometimes works, just not that one.
3rd and 3, KYP, questionable choice here to think Cash Jones is not getting this carry.
This is I get I'm going for it on 4th down, so I'm going to maybe sneak this in. But if you're going to do that, don't have 2 tight ends and London Humphreys on the field, because you're telling them that we're running the football. And the other thing to do that, if you're going to do that, spread them out. Go in your wide formation, go trips to one side, go 2x2, spread them out in some way. But you just brought a ton of bodies into the box, and Cash is not going to run through these bodies. Period.
The only other thing I wondered, and it's not even in this play design, I'm almost positive, but is there a little flip pass RPO style to Arian?
But
something 30, that's not this.
30 whips your Jurasic here. If that doesn't happen, maybe you get an extra yard or 2, but still, it's one where that was one that if you're going to do that and try to sneak that in on them, spread them out.
Yeah.
And think, hey, we're going to pass, and Cash is going to be a check down option kind of dude versus that. So we had the back and forth stuff going on here for this 4th down.
Yeah. 4th and 2.
So instead of what they were going to do the previous time, they go to their go-to. They go to mesh. And Notre Dame does what Notre Dame does. And they say, all right, we're coming after you. And we're bringing people from places you don't know where they're coming. And you have to be ready to block them. And Georgia, and this was sort of if you look at why on this one, you got Ernest Green playing right tackle. And he sees the outside blitz. I do wonder if ETN was supposed to get the backer, because look at him looking back there and just didn't see that, or his eyes in the wrong place. I'm not really sure exactly how they would design that protection, because maybe he's getting 0, but he's staying on that side of the field the entire time versus coming back to the right. And now you can't. And by the way, I don't even know if you protect this well. Like Dylan Bell maybe catches the ball at the line of scrimmage kind of thing, or right at the first down marker, and you get it to him right there. But for the most part, I don't think this play was going anywhere, even if you do protect it a little bit.
I mean,
but this was the game. This was you had just stopped them on 4th down. They went for it on 4th down. You had just stopped them, and you had a chance with 3 minutes to go in the game, in the third quarter, to make them sweat offensively, at least make them think about what they want to do offensively. And you blew it. Basically, you had 3 plays or 4, and you didn't get anything.
I mean, you blew it, and they earned it by the pressure that they continually brought in this game.
100%.
It's always the combination, right?
How do you handle aggressiveness? Misdirection.
A little pitch to Frazier.
Look what the reverse action does. 34 is in a blender right here. Watch the defense's right linebacker. He's looking over there thinking Arian has the ball still. You get a great block from Lucky, but yeah, he's looking back the other way. Humphreys gets in the way, does his thing, and you finally get your biggest run of the game. By the way, you think Kirby may have mentioned to someone at halftime about keeping the sidelines taken care of? Watch the sideline. That cat is sprinting down through there to everybody to get back. Message received.
Yeah.
Get back. And everybody's right where they're supposed to, gets back out of the way.
Look like he's like curling, so the what do you call it? It's not a ball, but it can roll down the ice. Anyway.
I don't know who that is, but he did his job.
A little slant to Bell here.
So again, look where you are. Like you've got a chance to make it at least a 1-score game and make it interesting. You get an overload, you're singled up, and you're just behind. I don't know if it's 30 being in the way that causes him to throw that ball a little bit like that and be behind him. But you're a little bit behind him with that. Bell's like, hey, throw it out in front. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, dude, he just threw you a perfect ball earlier and you dropped it, make a daggone play. Like, don't even start to do that garbage.
All right. So, I mean, you have to have touchdowns here just based on what the score situation is.
The one question I do have on that play is, like, go back to one other thing with it is, and this is how they rushed. Why didn't they pass that off on the rush? Because watch it, Tate stays with the interior guy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's with Green playing right tackle, not as much. Maybe there's a communication thing there, and he's not telling him. Maybe there's a verbiage or talking that has to happen, but they stayed on that guy versus Tate passing him off, coming back on 30, and maybe you get your throwing lane a little bit more so versus him being in the throwing lane. So this is I really like this call. It's a very good call. It's an even better play by 44. Like he sniffs it out, because if he doesn't make the play, this is probably a touchdown. If he's screaming at Stockton throws it over his head, because you've got your slower players on the interior and 2 guys to block one.
So if we erase him here and put him here chasing back,
yeah, you're likely scoring or getting inside the 10 at worst. But just a great play from 44. Good call.
44 was great all game.
Yeah, very much so. Very aggressive. And that's what's amazing about it is, watching the game, watching them on tape, especially against like USC, watching them against Indiana, I thought, okay, Georgia, you can handle this. It's just they didn't.
I mean, Notre Dame was more physical too. They were already fast, but then they were more physical than Georgia was.
Yep. This one was hard to sort of understand. So you had the PI on 4th down, so you still got another chance. And 1st and 10, I think was I forget. First and 10 was the fade to Tuggle.
Yeah.
So you throw a fade to Tuggle. This is the part where I was talking about where you ran some plays instead of thinking about players. Fade to Tuggle, who, by the way, that was his 7th target of the season.
Who had been in the transfer portal between the SEC championship and the Sugar Bowl.
And then you run a play, which, by the way, I don't think they've ever run in the history of Kirby being the coach. I can't remember them running this type of play ever. Maybe somebody can go back and fact check me. But what this is this is a sort of, I actually wrote about this before the game. It's bash with the quarterback counter. So the back is going to the right, and then the counter action with the guard and the tackle pulling to the left. And Notre Dame's call and their aggressiveness. By the way, Gunner did a heck of a job to get what he did. But ideally, how does this work? Pause it a little bit back, a little bit more. So ideally, Frazier to me is coming along straight to the right. Especially if this is like Gunner's keeping this no matter what kind of thing. He's coming out there to slow the 40 and 24 down. And then you also, like most teams do this as a kick out lead. But by the way, watch where Tate Ratledge hits. He hits his shoulder right there. If that's the case, then ideally you want to go north-south and go inside of that. Is that green or truss?
It's green.
Green. But they go outside of it. Like I said, he got what he got was good, but you're again running a play that you've rarely, if ever, run. So it didn't work out as great as you thought.
Final one we're going to look at, because after this, the Hayes in the barn and Notre Dame really just owns the clock from this point. Georgia needed a touchdown on this play.
They went to their go-to. They went to mesh. You see the crossers in front. You see the over-the-ball route, and then the single route out there. Again, this is one where I don't know if I'm throwing it to him, and if the situation depends. The other part for this is where inexperienced quarterback, he's trying to throw a perfect ball here. It's 4th down. You can't throw a perfect ball here. You got to throw a ball where your guy catches it, or maybe there's at least a potential pass interference call. And to me, this ball needed to be thrown inside of where the DB was. So pause it right there. I would have thrown this ball with like the right part of the G, like right to where Lucky had right in there, to where he had to angle a little bit more, and maybe you get a jump ball situation, you get a PI, or he comes down with it, whatever. But to try to drop it in the bucket dime. Now he did stop running, and he could have caught it, I think, potentially if he didn't. But it's just on fourth down, you got to at least maybe have to make that call played. But in the end, they weren't winning the game. They just didn't do enough. They were fighting an uphill battle the entire time because Notre Dame took it to them. Period. End of story. Like, it was just. Now, sadly, Georgia didn't help, and one decision, and then one bad special teams play, and that's what we talked about this last when we previewed the game. How much of a just close, who's going to make the mistake, who's going to make the one big play kind of game, and that's the one where, and that's like the part that was when you rewatch, is there. Hey, early in the game, I'm not going to be aggressive. I'm not going to try to double move, pump, do things to attack their aggressiveness. And then at the end of the half, you want to go be aggressive? Like,
yeah.
Not in this game.
Also, know your personnel in that situation, too. That the worst thing that can happen is to get down on the scoreboard by more. If you're keeping it tight, then you have a chance.
Some pressure's on them, too. Pressure is on them, too.
Because to that point, Notre Dame had not done a whole lot on offense either. No. So worst case, 6-3 at halftime. And I think Kirby Smart, in retrospect, I mean,
he knows it.
He said all the things that, like, you want to be aggressive, you don't want to waste possessions and all those things. But, it gets highlighted when Notre Dame has that kick return touchdown.
Yes.
That decision gets highlighted even more. And Georgia typically doesn't allow that to happen either. But why did that happen on the kickoff? Missed tackle.
There's a lot more than just that. I've got that all. I'm going to run that on the website middle of the week. Like I've screenshotted it and circled things. There's some discipline and effort issues on that play specifically.
There were some effort issues from multiple of Georgia's players. One of them is already in the transfer portal, in my opinion. And there's another defensive back that Notre Dame was picking on early, and we'll talk about what that looked like for Georgia's defense in our defensive video. Do quickly want to give a shout out to our season-long sponsors of Film Don't Lie, ASW Distillery. 5 of the 6 founders are UGA grads, so you know when you buy the Hunker Bourbon or the Hunker Vodka that you're supporting folks who support UGA. Anytime that those are purchased, a portion of the proceeds goes to Georgia's Classic City Collective that helps in Georgia's NIL efforts. Oconee Gold Barbecue Sauce. I used the spicy today, Brent, for...
How'd that go?
Yeah, I'd use the spicy sauce with a little bit of ground beef, and just I needed like a quick sandwich deal, and I loved it. It was a very quick, efficient lunch for someone that has 3 kids and class starting tomorrow at the University of Georgia, where I'm teaching for the first time.
Awesome. So both of us professors now.
Yeah.
By the way, Notre Dame folks that are in here, go get some of that sauce. Get the whole batch.
OconeeGoldBBQSauce.com. Yeah. I don't have the PhD. People are like, oh, Brent says he has a PhD to make him sound... No, you legitimately have a PhD.
Yeah, it's like on my wall right above me, right there.
Oh, he's got receipts above his head. I have the master's degree over here, but that's where I've stopped at this point. And then Breda Pest Management, the official pest control of the Georgia Bulldogs. They protect Sanford Stadium. They can protect your home as well. As Georgia's offense, not great. And we're going to show you Georgia's defense. I thought there was some things that were better with Georgia's defense, but ultimately, Riley Leonard in the running game, continually something Georgia struggled with this season in stopping a mobile quarterback.
You know how we just talked about in this entire whole almost hour that we talked about Notre Dame's aggressiveness? Georgia didn't. I think they went back and forth with how aggressive they wanted to be in this game when they should have just been all gas, no brakes, aggressive defensively.
We'll see what that looks like. If you are watching live, we're going to come right back in a new link. So if you just hit refresh in about 90 seconds, you can join us for a review of Georgia's defensive efforts against Notre Dame. And if you're watching this later on, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Like what we're doing. The next things that we have with Film Don't Lie will be breakdowns of Georgia's new transfers. People coming from the portal. Some branch brothers that we need to check out.
Brothers.
So that'll happen this
cool.
week. We can stretch out the content a little bit. We have some time to let this stuff breathe, but that'll be coming here on Film Don't Lie. Thanks everybody for watching.